Welcome to the Boomer Briefing Podcast, where we help you solve a critical business issue in 20 minutes or less. I'm your host, Mark Stout, Chief Innovation and Technology Officer at Boomer Consulting, and with me today is Alan Gregory. Hi, Alan. Thank you so much for being on this episode of the podcast. Alan is a partner of the federal tax with TaxOps, and today we're going to be talking about billing time versus delivering value and how mind shifts are shifting in the CPA profession. So thank you again so much for being here, Alan. It's great to have you, and I'm really looking forward to getting into this topic. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you, and thanks for having me on, Mark. Yeah, so again, my name is Alan Gregory. I'm a tax partner at TaxOps, and essentially I've been in public accounting all of my professional career and worked in a variety of, larger firms. We're, a 25-person firm, but, regional in the sense of the clients we serve, and national and international as we look at their actual footprints.
Awesome. And, we were talking a little bit as we were getting prepped for this podcast, and it became very clear that your firm is a little bit different than a lot of other CPA firms. What are some of those differences?
Yeah, thank you. And I would say very much so. So we talk about ourselves, kind of the elevator speech is, hey, we're a little bit of both, best of both worlds, in the sense that we have the experience and expertise of individuals who have worked with larger firms, but as a smaller firms, we have a little bit more of those, that closer feel and connection that you kind of, think about with, more senior people being engaged in kind of work from day-to-day basis. That's, kind of the elevator speech. I think it goes a little bit deeper than that, too. If you just think about our culture, obviously, we think really separates us as well. And that, is not necessarily big four in the sense of, hopefully our target is really that work-life balance that's defined differently for a lot of, different people, but then also our clients. So again, smaller in number, we are at 25 people, but our client base is really upper middle market, and we're focused on kind of, that upper middle market. A lot of that comes from, kind of having worked at larger firms. So we tend to be more of a broader spectrum of offering to those middle market clients. And as we think about kind of our ideal client too, we talk about being really just kind of an outsourced, if you will, tax department, where they have a financial reporting department, but maybe need a little more help in, some of that, direct tax work.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And, I really appreciate the approach that you take to your people as well. A lot of them are already experienced, and they know exactly what they're looking for when they join your firm, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we like to think so. We're at a size where we can't really, or haven't really found the efficiency in going to direct hire out of school. So we've tended to look at those folks that are 3 to 5 years kind of experience. And, that helps us kind of get an understanding that they're really committed to kind of public accounting, certainly get a little training for some larger firms. But then, we're at that point kind of matching up what we have as kind of a mission statement and looking for those people that, kind of you can trust, they have some background, their accountability, and that then just kind of leads to our flexibility that we have in a culture. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it really sets you up for success, which is important as we get into really kind of the meat of this episode. So, Alan, you often speak to focusing on providing value to your clients versus time tracking. That is a huge topic these days. What does that look like in your firm?
Yeah, it certainly has. And so TaxOps, since formation, has really taken that approach. As you mentioned, kind of from an employee standpoint, of course, it's very attractive to them, and has helped us, from a recruiting standpoint, because there is a little bit of that administrative headache, thought process as a staff person, trying to record time. But yet, it really aligns with our culture and our client base from the standpoint of we want to be, like I said, they're outsourced, kind of answer. So we do have just a fixed fee. We don't track hours, on the other side from a standpoint of, we don't think the value should be determined by the amount of time that we have involved, right? The value is really the deliverable and the output of the product that is not just maybe a tax return, but it's also that relationship and the ability to kind of be on call. What we find is, even for our clients, a lot of people talk about being proactive, but sometimes there is a hesitation hey, am I going to get a phone call charge for 15 minutes? But if we don't have that kind of hanging out there, what we find is we're more engaged, as I mentioned, more proactive, and then kind of the relationship works really well. I did mention our ideal client. It kind of comes full circle because what we're looking for is someone that client-wise that's going to be collaborative with us. That's one of our kind of final criteria there. So if you find that, we can, explain what we're delivering as far as experience, expertise, and that fixed fee is, part of everything they're receiving, it's worked really well for us kind of in the space that we're working at.
That's amazing. And I love that you focus on more than just the deliverable, right? The value that they're getting really comes from the type of relationship that you have built. And you've removed the things that kind of would get in the way of that relationship. So by saying, hey, here's our fixed fee, you're able to say, let's invest the time in and let's make it easy for them to call you. That builds that partnership. I think that's really, really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, as I said, that collaborative working, with our clients certainly has, kind of we've seen results, positive results on both sides, internal and external. The external client is the success that we've had in maintaining those clients then with this collaborative kind of relationship, them knowing kind of what they're getting, not only from a fee standpoint, but also from the experience with us. And of course, internally, then it helps because, staff don't have to worry about or not as one more thing, right? Yeah. So we're not worried about inputs. We're worried about outputs and making sure our client is receiving that, hopefully proactive kind of approach to ultimately what the deliverable is.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that. Well, what are some of the challenges that come with your methodology, right?
Yeah, certainly. Well, if you just think about our industry from, years gone by, everyone's had that. Here's how the public accounting industry works, right? You figure out your charge hours and everyone bills you by hour and you get charged when you kind of pick up the phone and have a call. But, what challenges we have seen is, just first making sure that people understand, that value that we're bringing, of course. And, what we've seen is ultimately, very positive once we get past kind of the first hurdle. Are there challenges from kind of defining the kind of specific work? Absolutely, So we want to be that outsourced, resource for everyone. But, obviously if it gets to, hey, we have a transaction planned or we're going through an IRS examination, there's got to be the understanding upfront and communication. Okay, well, that's something separate that we'll have to talk about. But for everything that's defined upfront, the fixed fee approach has worked really well for us.
Yeah, so it really comes down to pricing and scoping is one of the bigger challenges out of the gate. If you get that right, everything else seems to kind of fall into place. Is that correct?
It is. No, I think you really hit on it, Mark, because, certainly you can, and each client's different, but certainly you can get into those situations where, well, I thought we were all in. So you get a call for everything. And then we just need to help with this little thing and that little thing. And certainly, like I said, we want to be a resource and we want to be responsive. And we're in the client service business, of course. But, we also have to be fair to ourselves and fair to, kind of our staff as well. So communication up front, and, that goes right to our engagement letter and also just speaking to our clients. Here's what we're going to deliver to you. And if you get that mapped out, it's like anything else. It seems like, if you have that communication up front and understood, you can battle those, or at least be able to respond to those kind of creeping questions. But yes, it's certainly an ongoing challenge and you have to be aware of it.
Yeah, I love that. It's like one of the biggest secrets to life, right? Upfront communication.
Right.
Let's do that ahead of time. It solves so many problems later on down the road if we've gotten that right. So I love that. Well, let's shift gears just a little bit, and I'm curious because your firm has been practicing for a while now. You've built something really cool there. But as you bring people in, even though they are experienced people, how do you really teach the importance of value and value pricing to CPAs that are traditionally focused on billing?
Yeah, that's certainly a change. And like I mentioned, with some people that are used to, being, kind of looked at in that, where are your charge hours and how many do you have this week and what are you going to get? It's certainly a little bit of a relief and actually from a hiring standpoint, an attractive point. But yet what we're trying to do and what we talk to people about as they're coming in is, we're looking for trust and accountability, and that's part of kind of our vision statement. And what that results in is some flexibility, kind of for our people if you, pull all those together. So it's, selling people on here's what we're about and here's our culture, because kind of hand in hand with the no charge hours is we don't track then, kind of vacation time. It's unlimited, kind of vacation, if you will, or time off, as we say. So it's, again, focus on kind of the outputs versus inputs. And, by having people and hiring people that, we feel like we can trust, have accountability both ways, that flexibility just results almost. So, it's a challenge certainly to, kind of educate people about that. But I think as we are able to, show them what the possibilities are, it's quickly absorbed.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's really key to make sure that you're hiring the right people, not just, people who can do the work, but have the right mindset. And as you look to the succession of your firm, having those people in place and really embracing your mission and your philosophy is what makes that move forward. Is that about right?
No, I think that's well said. And, kind of going back to, it's a little bit more of a challenge, at least with us in our size, to have that, hiring people directly out of school, training them up. We just don't have that process in place. That's a plus in some sense for us because we can look to people that have spent 3 to 5 years kind of in public accounting, know that, that's something they really seem, kind of committed to. Certainly when I started in the practice, it was, 2 to 5 years and you figure out whether you're going to stay or kind of, move on. So we have a little bit of that, benefit really in our hiring, kind of practice. And then it's, as always, part of an interview process. But, I think we can, at least have a little bit more of that identity, like maturity kind of, scenario to be able to, really gauge whether someone kind of is committed and understands and appreciates kind of what we're trying to accomplish. So it's, really works out well together then.
Sure. One of the challenges that I have seen firms run into when they want to move more towards value billing and value pricing is really how they're going to do metrics or measurements. How do you measure success inside your firm?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And certainly we look at a lot of those key performance index to try to make sure that, we're in line with other firms. we have some intangibles, of course, that we look at, and we've been fortunate and recognized by accounting today as some of the top firms in the smaller firm. We also think that intangible of just clients staying and as well as people staying is really kind of good for us. But the really key index as we look at kind of a tangible number is just that revenue per person, revenue per professional staff, and kind of revenue across the board. We've actually seen more recently, and we participate in a Rosenberg survey, Mark, that I know you're familiar with. There's some 300 firms that kind of participate there, and we've followed that for the last 5+ years. And you can kind of at least have some feedback and alignment to, hey, where are we as we look at even, some of the profitable firms? And of course, we're trying to make sure that we're not in the lower area as well. But it gives us at least some feedback to share internally, as well as it gives us some goals to kind of target. So that's what we found as best currently. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. It sounds like there's a lot of opportunities there that you are using both a combination of both internal and external metrics to really gauge where you're at. And I completely agree with you on revenue per FTE. We actually do some metrics at Boomer as well. And that's one of our best indicators for how a firm is really performing. So looking at how you're comparing there is absolutely a key area. Well, as we wind this up, Alan, I think this has been a really good conversation. And I think you've probably intrigued a lot of people. As they start to think about maybe how this could apply inside their own firm, what are some next steps that you would recommend to our listeners that they would be able to apply these ideas?
Yeah, so like maybe just shifting from kind of a rate per hour kind of process. Certainly, I think one of the things that we've talked about that as I would share with, other firms currently is in the where we are in an industry currently, there seems to be a lot of opportunity, and there's always discussion about, what's the right client and make sure you have the right client, kind of mix. And that's very important for us. As I mentioned previously, one of those things we look at is whether they're kind of, collaborative in the end. So in my mind, this is the time and the opportunity to do it. Again, we're fortunate where we are in an industry. We have to be super efficient, that the amount of resources are kind of condensed. We have to use technology efficiently. And if you think about it, if there's one less thing we have to worry about, at least from tracking charge hours, then man, this seems like, the right time to kind of really potentially do a little bit of a shift. I think that it's really not that challenging when you sit down and have that conversation up front with clients. It's just been received really well for us. I think the challenge is, trying to break that barrier of what people are used to internally, kind of historically. But right now, it just seems like, boy, if there's a time knowing what's going on in our industry to kind of rethink this and really think about value versus, kind of just what your inputs are. There's a lot of firms out there that can provide a lot of value, no doubt, given that there's limited resources. So that's what I would talk to folks about.
Awesome. And when it comes down to it, just do it. Just get started. Yeah. That's the way. That's the first step. The next step is the most important one that you can take. Take that very first step.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time today, Alan. It was great to hear your insights. And for our listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation, we release new episodes every Tuesday morning. We talked about leadership today, but we also cover topics related to technology, process, talent, and growth. And what all the topics have in common is that they're crucial to your firm's success in helping you solve a critical business issue in 20 minutes or less. So if you like what you heard, please subscribe, and thank you for listening.